All right, so today I want to talk to you guys about muscle mass, because a lot of people stress out about losing muscle when they can't go to the gym, and at the end of the day, it's you're more scared of something that's not going to happen than it is happening, right? And this also does depend on with how long you take off the gym and stuff like that, but the body is not just going to start dropping muscle mass when you can't go to the gym. It doesn't happen like that. It would be actually quite inefficient if that was the case, because think about genetics, think about our history. If we were to lose muscle mass so quickly, or just lose like any mass quickly at all, that's going to be a very big issue for us dying, basically. So the body's quite good at preserving things for a longer period of time, and that's why we can go longer times without food and long time without water. Not super long, but without water. But without food, we can go a while. It's because we've got fat stores, and muscle is just not a fuel source to be used, right? If you're not using it, you will lose it, yes, for a period, like when you are not using it for a certain period of time, but it's not something that's there and then it's just automatically used. So firstly, fuel sources, we use carbohydrates and fats as a fuel source. I'm actually given like the fucking, what's this, hang 10 sign, I don't know why, but we use carbohydrates and fats as a fuel source, predominantly, okay? So when you're sitting at rest with me sitting right now talking to you guys, I'm using fat as a fuel source. Cool? So understanding that when I'm not moving or I'm sick or whatever it's going to be, I'm still using fat predominantly as my fuel source. Then at a point where fat is still being used, you will start to use a little bit of protein or muscle mass for amino acids if you're not getting enough in your body. Okay, so what we want to think about first is, if you can't go to the gym or whatever it is, you want to make sure you're getting enough protein in, because if you're supporting your body with 2 grams per kilogram of body weight for protein, basically anywhere between 1.5 to 2.2, I just say 2 grams. So if you're getting 1.5 grams per kilogram of body weight minimum a day, you're going to be supporting your muscle mass still, and that's the most important thing, supporting muscle mass when you can't move. All right. If you're doing that, you're gonna be pretty sweet. Now, here's the thing. You'll not lose any muscle mass for about 3 to 4 weeks. That's when you will start to lose muscle mass. And the fastest way to lose muscle is to do nothing. It's to sit around, eat shit food, be bedridden, and not get enough protein, okay? If you're in hospital or you're sitting around for whatever reason it is, as long as you're getting enough protein in, you're gonna support your muscle for the first month, right? After the first month, unfortunately, it becomes a use it or lose it situation. You will lose a little bit of muscle mass. But the good news is about if you lose muscle mass, as soon as you get back to the gym, as soon as you start training regularly, as soon as you eat regularly, guess what happens? Muscle mass comes back, okay? This is the cool thing about muscle memory. We lose it, but it comes back quite easily. And even if you have, unfortunately, for whatever reason, lost any type of muscle, it will come back very, very quickly. Like within a month of consistent training again, it's all gonna be back into place. So that's a good thing too. Now it's funny because again, we stress a lot about losing muscle, which is good because we don't want to lose our hard-earned work, but it's not something we should stress as much about. However, people fall into the trap where it's like, if I'm not moving, I feel like shit, I might as well eat shit, blah, 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 and they end up having a shitty diet, and that's what's actually going to be the cause of losing your muscle mass, right? Now, for those of you who are stuck at home, or you're in hospital after recovery, or after surgery recovery, or whatever it is, or you're sick, the best thing you can actually do is get someone to bring you in some protein, right? Bring in some casein or whey protein isolate and pump some protein shakes, because that's actually going to be a good thing for you. Because unfortunately, hospital food is going to be quite shit. And if you've got if you're at home, then you're going to have access to food. But let's say it's a jaw issue and you can't chew your food, protein powder is going to be a good option. I'm not a big fan of protein bars, but protein bars do the job too. Simple things like that to keep your protein intake high is basically what you should be focusing on. And if you can, for however way you can do some movement, because movement will also support you in order to maintain your muscle mass. Contracting muscle, using it, will help that. And when I say contracting muscle, it's like literally going for a walk, just using the body for the most part. Don't go for a run, don't try and push yourself. I'm just telling you to go for a walk, all right? And then the more you focus on your protein, getting that consistently, the more you can move a little bit, you're gonna be protective of that muscle. Now, when you first come back to the gym, like I said, you're gonna feel like shit, especially if you've had 1 or 2 weeks off. Some people lose strength, Some people just like lose their groove. So when I start, like when people are like, oh, I've lost strength, you haven't really lost strength. You kind of lost like the motor connection from your brain to tell you how to do an exercise properly. And then you're just trying to relearn it for the first few weeks, basically. You know, like when you squat, when you get really good at squatting, because it's a technical movement, you get really good at squatting, you know, or the bench press. You know, your eyes look up, you set yourself up, it comes down, it touches the chest at a certain point, it comes back up. Like, you know, you get good at the movement itself. Like it becomes a, what's the word I'm trying to think of? It is, well, it's, you know, it's a motor neuron thing. So like, you know, you're learning good technique. When you don't do something for a while, you're going to lose those motor neuron connections, and you're going to have to rebuild them, basically. So that's why you feel a little bit shit with your strength for the first week or two. It's because you're just trying to teach your body to basically move again. Like, whoa, fuck, like, you know, trying to walk backwards with a squat bar or putting a bar on your back. You're like, whoa, I feel all over the place. It's totally normal. Give it a week or two, you'll be back to what your numbers were. And this is a good thing. If your strength is back to where it was, or it gets back to where it was, you've regained your muscle mass, which is a positive thing because it goes to show that you're not going to lose any muscle mass. And then finally, again, if you have lost any somehow, it comes back so quickly that you're going to be like, what? You're going to be asking yourself, why did I even stress? You know, I've got a friend who they had a hip issue, and they broke their pelvis. Well, not broke their pelvis, sorry. They fractured one of their hips, and they hadn't been able to train their leg in, I think it was 10 weeks. It was a while. And they couldn't try, they trained the other leg a little bit, because if you train the opposite, if you are injured and you train the opposite limb, so let's say you injure your right arm and you train your left arm, it actually prevents atrophy, or atrophy, is that the word? Atrophy in your other arm. So if I've broken my left arm and I'm training my right arm, it'll help with my left arm not atrophy as much, which is a good thing, right? So with this, if you are you know, getting back into the gym and you have had an injured limb and it's going to look like it's weak and it's fucking small, and you're going to be like, what the hell, like look at this arm compared to this arm, you give it a month of just eating regularly and training and building it back up, you're going to be like, you couldn't even tell this arm was broken. And it's just because the body, again, has really, really good muscle memory, which is fantastic. And muscle memory has been shown that even when people take more than, like, you know, like I think there was a study where a guy took like a year or something off the gym. Now, I can't remember if it was a study or it's just like someone's recomp. Like, if you take a certain amount of time off the gym and you were training quite seriously before, when you come back, you make like noob gains. You know, when you're first in the gym, you make the most amount of progress and your body shape changes quite dramatically. The exact same thing happens when you take 8 to 12 months off the gym. You come back. I don't obviously encourage people to take 8 to 12 months off the gym, but you come back and you're going to start to make some really good progress at the start again, which is kind of cool, you know? So knowing that just goes to show that if for whatever reason happens, you're unable to train for a certain amount of time, you're going to come back, your muscle memory is going to be there, everything's going to be fine, and then you're going to be back on track. So don't stress so much. What you need to focus on instead is, instead of stressing about, oh, I'm going to lose my muscle mass, think about, how do I prevent it? Get protein in. If I can walk, I'll go and walk. If you do those two things, I can guarantee you, you're going to be okay. All right, you're not going to lose any muscle mass for the long term. It's not going to disappear into the abyss forever. You're not going to, you know, fucking fall into a black hole and never get muscle back. It will come back. It's just a timing thing. All right. So I hope this little podcast was helpful. I hope it gives you guys a bit of an insight as to not stress so much about losing muscle mass. If you guys have any questions, as always, you can hit me up on Instagram at tysonthetrainerr 2 Rs. And if you found this podcast helpful, make sure to share it with all your friends or on Instagram and tag me so I can share it on my stories. And until next time, I'll speak to you then.